All right, we are live. Welcome to Living in Dallas, Texas, the live edition. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We already see several of you out there, and we're already getting hit up with questions, so that's always a good thing. We do this live to help you and answer your questions on everything Dallas real estate related. And we have a very special guest tonight. By the way, my name is Levi Lassick, and we get calls, text, emails every single day. And we love it. So if you're thinking about making that move to Dallas or around Dallas or selling in Dallas, then just give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email, or even schedule a Zoom call. All of that is in the description below. Even right here, you can see the phone number. You can reach out to us anytime. Happy to help you make that smooth move to Dallas. So tonight we got a special guest on with us tonight. I'm going to bring on Mr. Eddie Johansson. And little background on Eddie. He is a real world, excuse me, let me read this directly. All right. Real world FICO scoring and credit reporting expert with over 20 years of experience. All right. For the past 11 years, he's been testifying as an expert witness in federal and state cases involving FICO scores and credit reporting. So it specializes in rapid rescoring and long-term rescoring. This is not credit repair. So if anyone disagrees with anything you learn from Eddie, trust me when I tell you they're wrong and Eddie's right. All right, that's a pretty bold statement. So I wonder who wrote that. Let's see. Let's first of all bring in my man Travis. Did you write that about Eddie or what?
Yeah, I wrote that. No, Eddie wrote that. No, he wrote that about himself. He said, if anybody else says anything different than what he says, they're wrong. And he's right, because he actually is right. He's the man.
It's experience. Cool. It's experience, man. It's having to be right for 20 years. It's how you survive. You got to be right.
There you go. Well, welcome, Eddie. Thanks for coming on with us this evening. How are you?
I'm great, man. Excited to be here. Thank y'all for having me.
Oh, yeah. So this is important. So people might be saying, well, credit, what is that? Well, of course, it has everything to do with financing in real estate. And interestingly enough, you do want to know what's going on out there. And if you have any problems, just a story that hit close to home, I'll just share with people. I'll be probably working with Eddie here pretty soon. We had to open up a new business account, and I made an application and got denied for the first time in my life. And I said, well, that was really crazy. Why is that? Next thing I know, they're like, well, there's some funny things on your credit report. Well, somebody got a hold of my information and charged up a couple of utility bills in a different state with my name on it, on addresses I've never lived at. And now they're in collections, and that's on my report. And that's something that I do have monitoring. And this is the thing, is that I always get like, oh, you have a new alert. And I just never really checked that stuff. So that's kind of on me, because I probably could have caught this. It looks like they've been there for almost 6 months now. So, but I don't really use my credit that often as far as applying for things. So, it's something that I just wasn't on the forefront. So appreciate you having us. Eddie, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you and say, unless Travis, you got anything to throw in there? I'm not sure where we want to kick off or what you think we might want to get started as far as the discussion tonight. And we're joined by Chrissy as well. Chrissy's here.
Hi, Chrissy.
Chrissy.
Hey guys, how are you?
Chrissy is the Wizard of Oz. So
that's right. Well, I got to give a personal shout out to Eddie, because he helped me out tremendously with my credit. So for those of you who've been following us for a little while, 4 years ago, I had a really bad business partner, and he was embezzling a bunch of money from the company. And 4 years ago, basically 4 years ago to this Christmas, I lost absolutely everything in my boat, my truck, the house that I was in. I mean, lost pretty much everything that I possibly had. And, I had reached out to Eddie through Brian, who was on the show with us a couple weeks back, and he got me and Eddie connected, and my score was in the 500s. So he has been able to get me from, what was it, the low 500s, Eddie, up to like a 720 just over the last few months of working together, doing it the right way. I'd worked with other credit repair companies. I'd actually been working with another credit repair company when I reached out to Eddie that I'd been with for 6, 7, 8, 9 months. I don't know how long I was with them, but nothing was getting done, and nothing was getting done the right way. way. And, Eddie kind of untangled all those pieces and put it all back together. And he's helped me out tremendously, because one of my biggest goals for next year was, instead of renting, like we preach, I'm leasing a house right now. Instead of leasing or renting, my dream was to buy a house. And so that was one of my biggest goals for this year, was to get my credit fixed up, settle all my debts that I had from the previous life, and get everything taken care of and on the right track to home ownership. And Eddie, just got to say, man, thank you so much for everything you did for me, man. It's been a pleasure working with you for sure. So I wanted to give you a personal shout out and just say thank you.
Man, I really appreciate that. We got a really hardworking staff. You had an interesting file. Credit Repair just sends out all those dispute letters and dispute. And there's been a big trend over the past couple of years to where these credit repair companies are actually faking fraud. They are creating fake police reports and fake affidavits of fraud, and trying to attack the bureaus and the companies that report with that methodology. And it worked for a while because typically people wouldn't do that, but these credit repair companies have gotten so far down in their ethics that people today that truly do have fraud have a really hard trouble correcting it because of all the fake fraud and fake documents that are out there. And that leads me to what Levi was just talking about. You get all those alerts, and the alert that you missed, which is understandable. What I don't like about these monitoring services is that it alerts you to everything. It alerts you to every credit card changing, every bureau, everything. And it becomes this noise. And what's important, it's like looking at the matrix and trying to figure out, oh, that over there. And what you had missed was probably a Verizon inquiry on one bureau or whatever utility. But at this point, the best advice I can give you, and I'm more than happy to help you, but fraud is something that has to be done by phone nowadays. Very likely that Verizon is the one reporting. They very rarely sell debts. If they do, it's much older. They'll sell it to a debt buyer called Jefferson Capital. But you can deal with Verizon directly, and the other utility provider. They have fraud. If you go to the website, they have a way to go through fraud. But the key component to fraud that everybody's always going to have to get is you got to have a police report. So, and you guys are in Dallas, so that's going to be some work. It's just being patient with the Dallas PD to get that police report. And once you have that, it's just time and keeping track of it. I'd be more than happy to help you with that, Levi, or coach you through it. That's another thing that makes us different. If I got consumers who are DIY, they like to do things themselves and they just don't know what to do, then we'll create an action plan for them. It could be a couple of accounts. There's up to many actions they can take. Some basic things. I mean, settle this account, pay this down, or open this type of credit. We've been keeping track of all these debt collectors and collection companies for 18 years in a database. So we know who will do what, who will delete for consumers, how they report, just all these nuances. It's kind of like fantasy football and keeping track of all the players. And we come up with an action plan. And then once we have that plan created, I've got a lot of clients who say, man, I got it. I can do all that. And we'll explain how to monitor and where to track the data. And then I'll always do a free follow-up. When they come back, I want to look at the FICO scores. We can talk about myfico.com and the best place to get the real scores. And they come back, and that helps me get them back to Brian, my referral sources. That's my only goal for you guys and my loan officers I work with. I want to get people back to close a loan. And that's all that matters for consumers that don't get there. And who cares if the credit's better? Nobody runs around going, oh my gosh, my credit report looks better, right? It's just paper. So it's about getting loans closed and getting people to goals.
Yeah, so let's kind of start there. Let's start from the basics. Let's say somebody's looking to buy a home, and what should they check first? Where can they go? What should they check first? Because that way, before they apply for the home loan, we don't want them to get caught off guard. So if they're in this process, what are some things that we can tap into? I mentioned to you, I'm a member of what's called ID Shield, which I thought was, good service, right? And again, but exactly what you just said is I would probably get an alert a day almost in my email, and which is why I pretty much ignored that. So what is there? Let's kind of start with the basics for scratch, and what should people do to be proactive? Where can they look, and where can they get the actual information?
Well, I can make it really simple. Myfico.com, myfico.com. Myfico.com is the only place consumers can go get the scores used in mortgage lending. It's FICO scores 5, 4, and 2. When you create an account, it does cost money, but when you create an account at MyFICO, it's a soft inquiry, so nobody gets it. And you click on the mortgage button and you can see your scores. If you're using Credit Karma or any other type of service, or like the ID Fraud Shield that you're using, the scores there are not going to be FICO scores. We call all the non-FICO scores, we call them FACOs. and you laugh, and so and when people do laugh, and the people listening, it'll stick to you. That's a good way. All these FACO scores have really condensed down, and what we're seeing dominate right now is the Vantage Score 3.0 and Vantage Score 4.0, and the reporting agencies made and developed those scores many years ago to compete against Fair Isaac and company, the creators of the FICO scores. I'm a bigger fan of FICO scores. They don't have a dog in the hunt. They're just trying to make a good score that predicts risk. And back to MyFICO, people say, Eddie, well, what score do I need? Well, the first question I ask is, how much home are you buying? How much are you putting down? Because those components can lead us to understand what is the score goal needed. So I guess we can kind of break that down in two simple categories. If they're going to buy a home under FHA, the Federal Housing Administration program, it's only 3.5% down. But each county has loan limits. So right now in Dallas County, the loan limit's $450,000, and that's all the surrounding counties. That loan limit means it's the loan limit. So you can buy a 550 house under FHA. You're just putting 100 down. And if somebody is doing an FHA loan, then 640, 620 scores, 660 might make the loan a little better, but that's all they need to be. A 640 on their mid score for FHA, and they're good to go. So if I ran across somebody like that, I'd say, let's don't put any money in your credit report. Hold on to that money so you can be more solid, more attractive to lending and lending guidelines. If a consumer is doing the other type of loan beyond FHA, and they would do, say, a conventional loan, then that's really different. It's a balancing act. I mean, if you're putting 20% down, then you're more likely to be approved with a lower score. If you're putting less down, you want a higher score. In general, though, just to keep this simple, let's assume a 700 conventional loan was approved and a 640. Those FHA, those loan terms would be very similar. So when you think of an FHA or USDA or VA, you can think 640, 660. Conventional loan, to get similar terms, interest rate or mortgage insurance premium, you really need to be over 680, 700, 720. And depending on some people's past, they just can't get that high. There's always a limitation to what's possible.
Okay. So let's see. I brought this up, myfico.com. So we got 3 plans here. Really, they charge monthly. Is that what you would recommend?
Well, you can log in, and I'm a fan of the Premier. The basic is just one bureau. The advanced is going to be $30 a month, but you only get a free credit report every quarter. So for an extra $10 a month, you can get that free report every month and see the scores. One of the things that's key here is that once you have the membership, you'll get the FICO 8 scores. The FICO 8 scores are the same scores your credit cards give you. And the FICO 8 scores will update all the time, and you'll get alerts that your FICO 8 went up or your FICO 8 went down. And it's a very different scoring model than the mortgage scores. So consumers need to be really aware that when you go to MyFICO, when you're buying a home, and you log in the first time and do that Premier plan, you just got the mortgage FICO scores. 3 weeks later, if you go click the mortgage button, you're going to see the scores you got 3 weeks previously. So you only get new mortgage scores every time you go click and get that new report from that subscription. Those 8 scores really confuse people, and they think their scores changing or going up and down. And it's not true to say, well, if my 8 went up, then my mortgages went up, because the inverse could be true. So you really want to look at those right scores. Another thing I would say is, if you are preparing for a purchase, get any new debt. Don't get any new accounts. Don't get any inquiries. Now, you see this a lot at the bottom of a lender's email. Don't open up any new accounts. Don't do anything. And the main reason they're giving that advice is they don't want somebody to go buy a car, because then that car adds to their debt ratios and could upset a loan. So they're more thinking from the financial side of it. The side that I'm talking from is inquiries and new accounts, lower scores. I'll try not to get on a high horse here, and we can get more into this, but building credit, if I could just scream one thing from the mountaintops, I'd tell everybody to stop it. Stop building credit. All these new accounts in a short period of time is not increasing FICO scores. It is lowering them. The FICO scores had to assume that every new account meant you did not have any money. So you're not less risky after opening up all these accounts. One of the things, and Travis, you brought up your story, when we had talked, and it took forever for us to unwind, some of the issues on the fraud level at your bureaus. But then I was like, okay, man, you just need one card. And you were like, are you sure I don't need to get more cards? I'm like, no, man, just get this one.
Yeah.
And stick with it. And I think you even texted me recently, man, should I get another? I'm like, no, man, just one is fine. For consumers who don't have any revolving history at all, they need one bank credit card. You stop, and then we got to deal with the past or what can be done in the past.
Okay. So what about these companies like ID Shield that I'm a part of? Is that a waste of time, or?
Well, the scores there are going to be the Vantage scores, so they're not going to be used for mortgage lending. It's a 3 bureau monitoring system, and it's got this other fraud thing. When we think of fraud, we think of LifeLock. I mean, they're probably the most famous fraud out there. But yeah, I wouldn't do it. I mean, if you just want to straight monitor your data, I think Credit Karma is a fine choice. It's Equifax and TransUnion. Of course, again, that's the Vantage score, but you would ignore that. You would just use Credit Karma to monitor Equifax and TransUnion data. Experian.com offers free monitoring of their data. And so if you have all 3 bureaus and you're taking actions, you've paid something, or let's say a collection said they were going to delete, or you've paid down debt and you're waiting for those things to update, then Credit Karma and Experian's a fine combination just to monitor the data. And then you can go to My FICO to get your scores when you see data changes. And so that's what I advise. That the ID theft, I mean, if you're paying money for it, I would cancel it. But again, it's a personal decision. If you like the format, it's easy to read and you're used to it, then there's some value there. I don't worry about fraud. I don't personally have any LifeLock or fraud services. I don't worry about it too much. I know there's a lot of fear out there, but it's a lot less common than people think. Obviously, Levi, here I'm saying it's not very common, and it just happened to you, but it is fairly uncommon.
Well, it took them 43 years to get me, so
Yeah, and it can be undone. And another thing that's important as we look at your data, and one of the things that's it's missed a lot is not only getting those fraud accounts off is key, but we got to go through your identifiers. We need to look at your name and all the addresses at each reporting agency. Very likely that address that you saw in another state is going to be in your history, and that needs to be deleted.
Yeah.
One of the easiest ways for fraud is having access to somebody's information. And the reason they did utilities is because utilities are much easier. Whoever committed this fraud on you, they couldn't get a credit card in your name because whatever address they put on the credit card application, if it wasn't theirs, if it wasn't on your credit report, then it would be automatically denied. So getting your identifiers and your address is nice and neat to complete that fraud cure process is important. And maybe if this fraudster is fairly sophisticated, then by getting a utility going, they could put an address on there on one of your bureaus and then go for that credit card application, because then the address is going to be there.
Well, now you just gave them ideas if they didn't know.
Well, so it's still hard. I mean, look, it's not that easy. What I see most of the time, the most common forms of fraud are family, people that was close to an address or live there. And somebody who just moved out of a piece of property. I think one of the things that it'd be great for y'all to broadcast out there It's for everybody who's moving in any facet, buying a home or just moving. Opt out prescreen.com, OPTOUTPRE screen.com. What opt out pre-screen does is it opts you out of all these pre-approvals that come in the mail. If you go to that website, you can do a 5-year opt out pretty easily. And the reason that's important is because when you move, the reporting agencies get your new address from the companies that are reporting to your credit report. So when you move and you're there for a couple of weeks, and then you call Capital One and say, hey, here's my new address. Well, if they don't report again for 20 days, then the bureaus don't have your new address for several weeks. Well, if you haven't opted out, then those pre-approvals are going to where you just left. And that's tempting to the person, whoever's there.
Yeah, well, that would save me a lot of junk mail that I got to throw away. I tell you what,
It does. My wife and I are 17 years now of opting out.
Man, what a game changer. That was worth your weight in gold right there.
Well, and you know what's funny is it's surprising how fast 5 years goes by, because 5 years later you're like, wait a minute, has it already been 5 years? What's all this crap I'm getting? And then you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 5 years again.
All right, so I'm let's see, I'm back here. I'm optoutprescreen.com, right?
Yes, sir.
So let me see, what am I going to do? All right. Click
there
here.
It is.
Opt in. Name, address, social, date of birth, and that's it.
That's it. And do the 5-year electronic 5-year. Yeah. The permanent opt out, you know, what's interesting about that is that form you have to print off, it doesn't print. It's kind of funky when you try to print it. And then when you mail it in, the bureaus might not, you know, do their part to register it. I'm not saying there's any nefarious thing going on, but they make it harder to do the permanent. So the 5-year opt out is just a few clicks and it's fast.
All right.
Yep,
yeah,
I'm definitely doing that as well.
I do note, I realized, whenever I was going through my credit, I've got like 30 addresses on there. Now, some of those were duplicates from the places I've lived before, but man, there's a lot of stuff on there. Probably good to get all that cleaned up.
Yeah. And you can, you know, for all the bad press that reporting agencies get, they're doing the best they can, and you can reach them on the phone. Experience by far the best phone service. They're here in Allen, Texas. They're really fast, but all 3 bureaus have access by phone, and you just got to be patient. It's like calling any other big company, maybe your credit card company, wait on hold for a while. But if you take your time, then you can go get that information corrected. Annualcreditreport.com is where consumers can go to get their data. We get free reports every year. I think TransUnion is still doing them weekly for free since COVID, but you can get annual credit reports. The significance of getting that is not only do you get all your data, it's not scored, it's just all data, but you create a file ID. Think of a credit report number. So once you create that credit report at annualcreditreport.com, then you can call the reporting agency with the phone number on the report, give them the file ID, then they can pull up and you're both looking at the same thing. And then you can start to go through your addresses and names. And I always suggest that people have their phone numbers removed from the bureaus. They'll remove those for you too. It's just less people calling you.
Okay. Travis, you got a question? I'm
thinking like if someone's watching this and they're thinking, well, how long after I fix my credit can I buy a house? Like how would they go about that? They got their credit fixed, they're looking to go buy a house. So what does that process look like?
Well, they're done. Well, so as soon as they have the scores to qualify, as soon as it's fixed or accurate or in the right standing, then they can go right then. They can go right for approval. Right. One of the reasons it's good to get a lender involved first, and I'm a huge fan of Brian McCauley because he takes all the time to do the front end work, even if somebody's not there credit score wise. And what I mean by front end work is it's good to have a loan originator who can go through debt ratios, look at your income history. If you're W-2, you really don't have to worry about it too much. But if you're salary plus bonus and overtime, or you're self-employed, you have multiple companies, then figuring out what your income is to the mortgage world can be a little complex. But once you have your income and how much money you have in reserves, it's like money in retirement. Reserves is money you have in the bank after you close. If we can keep that's really simple for consumers who are out there wanting to buy a home. I strongly suggest have at least 1 or 2 months in reserves. And just that 1 or 2 months will make a big difference for that automated approval to say yes. And if you think about it, the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, the automated underwriting systems, or even you, if you were a lender, you wouldn't want somebody to close on your loan and then have to work for your first payment to pay your loan.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes complete sense.
So, and I can do that too. I get a lot of realtor referrals or consumers who just find me on the web, and I can go through the debt ratios. And if it's simple, if it's W-2 and overtime and they average the last 2 years or bonus, I mean, that can be calculated and figured up. And then from that, we can figure out their housing ratio and their back-end ratio. And the housing ratio is pretty much how high can your mortgage payment be within reason that it would be approved through the system. And based on the mortgage payment, then you guys come in and say, all right, man, here's the houses, here's the areas, and here's what you're looking for.
So, so that's something that the company did mention to me is filing a police report. So that's something you do recommend. And I filed the police report, and then I'm going to take that straight to the utility companies, and they should work with me on getting that resolved.
They will. If you were to Google Verizon fraud procedure, you'll find a website with Verizon, and it'll be a form you fill out, links to upload. They have a procedure for it. You can imagine this happens a lot. So they try to make it as efficient for themselves as possible and thus for you. So you'll follow their procedure, upload all the information to them. They should be getting back with you via email and keeping in touch with you to go through that process. And once it's resolved, it'll be done. If you have a collection company involved on the other utility, who's the other utility provider you mentioned? Do you remember?
It was a electricity company. So in Louisiana.
Okay. So
Entergy, that's who it was.
Entergy. I don't know if Entergy reports. TXU does, but TXU is the only company that reports themselves. So Verizon's a utility provider that they themselves report. The vast majority will hire a third-party debt collector to report. There's an important distinction there. A lot of people say, hey, they sold it, or they sold it to this company. They sold it to this collection company. And the word sold is not accurate. These third-party debt collectors are providing a service, meaning Entergy owns the debt. So you can still go straight to Entergy, even if ABC collections on your credit report. You go straight to Entergy, get the fraud resolved with them. Once it's resolved with them, then their computer systems are connected to the collection company, and you should see it disappear from the collection company that's on your credit report.
Well, I had a little bit of a different experience with Entergy. So Entergy told me that they don't have the account. They don't know who they sold it to, but they gave me a list of 9 companies that they sell their collections to. And I would have to call all 9 companies to try to find where my account was at. And
that's interesting. So
once we called those 9 companies, not a single one of them knew what I was talking about.
Well, then who's on your credit report? What's the name of the company that's actually on your report?
Entergy.
Entergy themselves is reporting, not a collection company collecting for them.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll find that on
log it in. We'll do it live. Let's log into your account, your ID theft. Okay. That didn't prevent the theft.
Well, let's see. Do I have anything on here? I don't want you to see all my dark web stuff. Okay. So just ignore.
Hey, speaking of dark web, we all have it. When I first signed into my FICO last year for a business deal I was doing, I had 37 emails, dark web. And I clicked on each one of them just to be sure there weren't any passwords out there that I was still using. But for the most part, it's just out there. And I don't believe there's a mechanism to just go wipe it all out.
All right. So you're saying this 722 is FACO.
And it should be the Vantage Score 3.0. What does it say what it is? I'm on a laptop and man, it's small. Oh yeah, down at the bottom. Yeah, that's the Vantage Score. Yeah, it's at the bottom right. You know, Yeah, it's
Oh,
just going to
man,
be different.
I did drop. See, I dropped to 691. Wow.
Yeah, so in the FICO world, you wouldn't be over 700 anymore because your first collection or Verizon is an original creditor, so it'd be a serious delinquency. It's going to be at least 95 points. And since you have Verizon and a collection on there, then that's going to compound it. So we're talking at least probably 120 to 130 on the FICO scale.
Okay, so this says creditor name, Entergy Louisiana.
Yeah, but
Profit and loss, energy.
yeah, that looks like Energy is reporting it though. I don't see any other name. Do you?
No, here's the other one. Yeah, here's
Yeah.
Verizon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, So that based on the format of this, yeah. So Verizon is reporting themselves, which they normally do, and Entergy is reporting. So Entergy, the legal term for this is a data furnisher. They're the ones furnishing the data to the bureaus. So when you called Entergy about a debt that they're reporting, they can't find it in their system.
Right. They said they sold it to one of 9 collection agencies, but didn't know who they sold it.
Well, look at the
Which is
report.
really what that's exactly what I expected whenever I realized I was calling Louisiana. But other than that,
What's the report date up there? Is that 9/8 of 22?
9.6, yeah.
9/6. Okay. So that's the last time they reported 9/6. They would have, if they truly sold the account, they would have deleted themselves from your credit report. Now, they could have sent a communication to one of the bureaus, and TransUnion just may have dropped the ball. And that's why we see a 9/6 report date. If you look at that Verizon account, I bet we have an 11. We have a more recent report date.
It says 8.4.
Well, then this credit report you have is dated from September then, right? This is my first time being ID Shield, but this can't be fresh data.
Well, I mean,
It's going to be from the
12 up top there.
date of score that says October 27th.
yeah, that's the date of your yeah. Okay, so October, and that's why we're seeing the September cycle on that other one. So it's a little bit older. Well, okay. Well, here's another route, and this is not the most exciting route, but or the least painful route. If Verizon does have a fraud procedure, you can deal with them directly. It sounds like Entergy's just not going to help, and they should be able to find that account in their system. So what you would do is get that police report, call each bureau individually, and upload or mail them the documentation. Or I tell you, if I've been working with Dennis McCarty and Jonathan Rayburn for many, many years now. They're two fantastic consumer advocate attorneys. And because of all the fraud issues people are having, they are, in cases like yours, they will dispute that account properly with all 3 bureaus. If it gets removed, great. They don't charge you for anything. But if it doesn't get removed and the bureaus continue to not remove it, then at no charge to you, they'll sue them. They'll sue them in federal court, and they'll remove it then. And that's how they'll get paid for their time. But I've been referring a lot of fraud to them. You know what's unfortunate is when we started this company in 2004. Fraud's been happening for years, and we knew the FTC's fraud procedure. We had it down. We tracked data and software. We did everything perfect, communications and certified letters. And man, we could totally help people with fraud. It was a way to really efficiently help people. And then as the years went by, especially 4 or 5 years ago, with all this fake fraud disputing that started to occur, it got to where it was just too time consuming. It was too hard to help people. So with people with this case of Energy who you can't call directly, then I'd get you to those 2 attorneys and let them handle it. That's what I'm doing with the fraud cases I get now. I'm just referring them to the party that's best help them.
Okay. All right. Well, I can't wait to take care of all of this.
I know. And look, and we can help you with some of it too. I mean, I tell people all the time, it's just how you value your time and what you want to do. I've had a saying for a long time, everybody can mow their yard, but few people do. So it just depends on how much of legwork you want to do. And we can talk about it another time.
Okay.
I told Eddie I didn't want to do nothing.
I know.
Nothing, man. Just handle it.
I know, man. When he meant nothing, it meant sometimes responding to text and messages when I needed him, man. I'd be blowing him up, man. I need this answer. I need to know this. I need to know that. But
welcome to the club, Eddie. You know,
okay, so I'm not the only one. So okay, good, Levi. He doesn't respond to you either. Okay, awesome.
Levi's the one who doesn't respond. I'll send him stuff all the time, and he'll just thumbs up or nothing. I'm like, oh, okay, that's how our friendship is. Okay. He's the yin to my yang.
It's so Chrissy, you have to manage these two men here and keep them in line.
I try. No, I do a lot of like the marketing stuff.
Oh,
you need a taser, just a little taser, just you know, just to calm.
She's been out with this plenty. She knows she's not going to get me with the taser.
Oh man,
your own taser.
You know, a funny side story. A couple of years ago, I was looking at tasers. I was going to get them as like stocking stuffers for my niece and my wife and my mom. And of course, you go to Amazon, you're reading reviews, and man, the reviews were so funny because almost every other review was like, well, my husband, he's 6'2", 200 pounds. He was walking by the couch and I hit him in the leg with it. He fell down. It works. It works great. So all
I'm
these
definitely gonna go look at Amazon reviews, man.
All these reviews were wives and girlfriends zapping their men, man, to test them.
Yeah, Sam, she got a taser, and she was like, "This thing works." Starts the button. It's like, zzz, zzz. I'm like, "Yes, that works. Like, get that shit away from me." So I ended up taking it from her, and I hit it. So only I know where it's at.
That's funny.
I don't want her to get mad at me for messing up and then get zapped in the middle of my sleep with a taser.
No, they work. Yeah.
I know they work.
I've been tased before in college in a bar. Yeah. You're immediately calm. You know, no matter how mad you are, you're extremely calm after the first two zaps.
Oh yeah.
You want to talk about it at that point. Let's sit down and have a discussion.
Yeah.
And you're no longer outraged or mad. It's all right, let's talk.
Exactly. So we got some questions here, it looks like.
Yeah, a few questions. Well, this one says, moving to northern Dallas, looking for a town with nice downtown restaurants, good Catholic school, under 1 hour from airport. Prosper McKinney, any other suggestions? Yes, let's see. Notice new construction, 2-story, 3,000 square feet. Primary bed on main floor, while kids' beds upstairs. We prefer sleeping on the same floor as kids. Can we find new construction with all bed upstairs?
I think they make the majority of homes like that because no one really wants to sleep in the same floor as their kids. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Actually, we all sleep on the same floor here at our house. But for new construction, typically, really a big percentage of those new construction properties are going to have the master on the first floor with maybe a guest bedroom or a in-law suite on the first floor, and then they'll have 2 or 3 rooms on the second floor. It's pretty hard to find new construction unless it's like a straight up like a custom build. With 3,000 square foot, typically in that price point, you're not really getting into a custom build unless you're like kind of out in the country, something like that. You're finding it in the community. I mean, if you're doing a custom build, then obviously you can build that property however you want, depending on what your budget is. But for the most part, I mean, you're going to find a lot of those, a lot of those masters on the first floor, but it doesn't mean that they're not out there. So, what we would want to do is I can look on the MLS, see what's available. I can sort through, MLS data with master on the first floor versus master not being on the first floor, and then take a look at the floor plans to see, obviously, if that's a good layout for you. But yeah, obviously, just give us a call, shoot us a text, and we can set that search up, kind of dial in your list. Because all those cities that you're talking about, Prosper, McKinney, Frisco, Lucas, anything in that northwest, northeast, straight up north, those are all really good areas. You got Keller, you got Southlake, you've got Flower Mound. All those are really great, and they're definitely within an hour of Dallas. And if you're looking for good Catholic schools, then that's very easy to find. There's some very, very, very good Catholic schools in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
This one's for you, Eddie. Let's see. What score is needed to rent an apartment?
That's a good question. Typically there's not a score, and if there is, it's more of a rental score. It wouldn't be like a FICO score. The main thing I've seen in the past when it comes to people being denied for an apartment is the potential future apartment complex, in other words, where you're applying for, when they check your credit history or your rental history, what they're looking for is unpaid apartment collections or evictions. So if you don't have any unpaid apartment collections in your past, and I think you'd be fine. I would just apply and see. They're not specifically looking for a score. They get that people don't have perfect credit. If they did, they would probably be buying a home. So again, they're just looking for past rental history issues.
There you go. Says you can freeze your accounts with all 3 bureaus and then unfreeze them.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad idea. And Levi, that's something you could look into doing too. Basically, what a freeze does is it hides your data. If you freeze your credit report with Equifax and go to buy a car and they pull Equifax, then they would come back and say, man, you don't exist. Your file is frozen. So it protects you from any new credit accounts or any inquiries or any type of mischievous behavior. And it prevents you from using your credit too. So there's nothing wrong with freezing and unfreezing your accounts. You want to give it a couple of days after you unfreeze it to have the data accessible by a potential lender. The only big bullet point is that when you set up your account with the bureaus, you'll obviously have a login and password. You'll maybe have a four-digit PIN number and maybe some security questions, and you freeze your account, you have to remember that information. If you freeze your account and go back in there 6 months later and you have forgotten some of that stuff, or you don't know your PIN number, you have frozen yourself out. Think of having a safe and forgetting the combination. You can't just jump back in there, even though saying that's mine. It's my safe though. I mean, you're locked out.
Yeah. It's kind of like a crypto wallet, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you buy all your crypto and everything and put it in there, you can't get back in, whatever. Or the company goes out. But yeah, I mean, it's they give you 5,000 words that you have to memorize, and that's your word key. And then it's crazy.
Yeah, but other than that, there's nothing wrong with it. It all comes down to personal decision. I've got clients who have LifeLock and they sleep better at night. Well, fantastic. It's not that expensive of a service. It just comes down to your personal preference. If it makes you feel better to have your accounts frozen, you don't have to worry about it, then do it. I mean, it's a free country, and whatever makes you feel right, and to move on and deal with other things in your life and not have to worry about someone getting your information. It's a personal decision. And if it's a personal decision based on and intelligence, then it can't be a wrong decision.
All right, good. Let's see. You got some fans on here. You got Vincent giving you. Oh, he's the zap. He's talking about tasing. I'm sure. Sure he likes that.
I'm sure he likes that.
Oh, hey, there's McCauley.
Hey,
there's McCauley.
What's up, Brian? Good to see you, brother.
Hey, man, his ears must have been burning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Moving to Dallas area next summer from California. We'll definitely need help. All right, Angel, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, and we're scheduled a Zoom. Let's see. Remember those seed phrases. There you go. Yeah, that's what he's talking about. The crypto wallets. They give you 25 words. You got to remember. So I just need that for my credit, and then nobody will be able to get in.
That's a fact.
While they're but my credit score is really bad. I've never rented before. Well, you won't have a rental credit score. And I would wonder where you're getting your credit scores from. At the end of the day, if you need to rent an apartment and you're worried about being approved, just go do it. If you're not worried about being denied, but at least you can go try and not assume you can't rent or assume they are looking at a specific score. Just know that people in apartments, and a lot of people in apartments at different times in their life, and people have had financial failures and still were able to go rent an apartment. So I would go try to rent an apartment and then get some feedback, or why, if you get denied, then why, or what data were they looking at? At least you can give you some direction versus assuming that a lot needs to be done because we don't have a goal or a set point to head to.
Yeah.
While we have some, explain Credit Karma. So I know by Brian saying that because he pulls credit and these bars go, that's not my score. He's like, I know it's not your score. We pull FICO scores. So creditkarma.com, a little bit of history. They started 13 years ago. Over the first probably 10 years, they invested around over $300 million in that platform. And Credit Karma was their big, what made them so valuable and why Intuit, who makes QuickBooks, bought them for $1.3 billion. I think it was last year, the year before, was because they connect potential lenders to consumers. So Credit Karma has your Equifax and TransUnion data, and all these lenders, from credit card companies to auto loans to every single thing you can think of, will put their metrics in there. Think of it as a high-speed opt-in to where it's live. And so they connect the borrowers. They do offer monitoring. It's TransUnion Equifax monitoring. If you're monitoring your data, like I said before, it's free. It's not a bad service. We have clients get it all the time. The biggest kicker, and probably why Brian's asking me that question, is these scores are FACOs. It's the Vantage Score 3.0, the Vantage Score 4.0, but they are not mortgage scores. And there is no metrics like the Vantage Score will be a few points. It's within 20 points or within 10 points, or it's always this high or always this low. It's going to be random for everybody because all of our credit history is as unique as we are. So it's going to be scored by different scoring models differently. So the best thing people can know is that Credit Karma is fine for monitoring. Just ignore the score. And more importantly, don't play the Credit Karma game. And what I mean by that is Credit Karma will suggest things like pay this collection, increase your scores 26 points. Well, your FICO scores used for mortgage lending will not go up even 1 point on a paid collection. Now, think about that for a second, because that bounces off of common sense. Well, wait a minute. I wouldn't pay the debt. Why wouldn't I be less risky? Well, that collection exists originally from not paying somebody as agreed. That's why it's there. That's why it's in collections. To go pay it later still means you didn't originally pay somebody as agreed. So you're not less risky for paying a collection. The only way to increase scores or FICO scores is to have the collection company agree to delete it when you pay it. And so that's what I don't like about Credit Karma is they play that game score there and they work on it over, gosh, who knows how much time. And they think their scores are really high. They're a 720. They call Brian and Brian pulls a 630 and they're pissed.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, man, they're mad at Brian because like, those aren't my scores, but really they've been duped by playing this other game over there. Credit Karma also rewards, or the Vantage Score rewards, new accounts. Where the FICO scores will assume you're broke. You know, if you think, speaking of broke, if you assume a simple theme here in the FICO scores, if you get new accounts and inquiries, it means you don't have money. You're broke. If you get a collection, you're broke. You didn't have the money to pay it. Now, granted, Levi, you're a different story. You get a collection, or if you move and you didn't pay the last bill, you thought it was paid. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons collections occur. I'm just saying, assuming it's accurate, assuming somebody knew about a collection, if it reports, it means you didn't have the money to pay it. If you have high credit card debt, it means you don't have the money to pay it down. You're broke. That's all risk. In April of 2005, Fair Isaac and Company told the world in a response to an FTC request, they said that the purpose of our scores is to predict the likelihood of a 90-day default in the next 24 months. So people are getting mortgages and loans based on a score predicting 2 years performance. What's the likelihood of being 90 days late? So when you think about predicting that future recent performance, think about the Cowboys. How are they going to do the next 2 seasons, or your favorite sports team?
Oh, the Cowboys FICO is horrible. I'll tell you that.
Come on, man. I've been a fan my whole life. It's hard. It's real hard.
They wouldn't qualify for anything.
They're definitely not qualified for any Super Bowls. I'll tell you that.
I don't know if they even qualify for an apartment in this world.
Oh man. And I'm just down the street.
You know it's true, man. You know it's true.
Blows up those pockets.
Yeah, so you're going to use recent performance. And so anything recent in the scores is going to have a bigger impact than something that's older. So you just can't ever appear that you're broke. I'll give you an example. Like Travis, as high as you've gotten, you're I think 620 mid. If you got, and we've talked about, and you know this, but if you got one 30-day late, $10 on on the credit card, then you're losing 40 to 50 points. See ya.
Yeah.
And you'll get about half of those back over the next 2 years, and then it'll slowly but surely fade away for the next 5. If the one thing I could tell everybody, man, is pay as agreed. I see so many late payments on people's credit reports, and it wasn't from not having money. It was just from not being organized.
Yeah.
We made a spreadsheet for to give to our clients on paying bills. If any of your listener, if any of the people here email you guys or email me, we'll give it to you. I'll give it to the whole world. It just organizes your debts. When's it due? When'd you pay it? And most importantly, you log back in a couple of weeks later to confirm the payment went through, and you put a date in that field. And now you're bulletproof. You have a note that you paid it, a note that you double checked it, and now you can never be late on anything. And you'd be surprised, your subconscious will finally leave you alone. How many times do you have that in the back of your mind going, is it the 15th? Did you pay the car note? Have you paid that yet?
Yeah.
What about this? What day is it? Constantly. So your subconscious is spending this precious time reminding you of something so simple like bills. Get that under control, arrest that, and your subconscious can start reminding you of more important things in life. Just get that under control, because late payments cannot be removed. I don't care what any credit person tells you. I don't care how many times they dispute it. It's not going away. And if anybody pops up on the screen, so I got my late payment deleted. Well, that's 1 or 2 in 100. And I'm not going to have any of my clients trying to buy a home based on a Hail Mary working. We just can't do that.
Yeah, I think Brian's throwing you some softballs here, but I think we covered this a little bit earlier, right? You're still saying myfico.com is
myfico.com is the best place to go. But you have to click on the mortgage button. When you go to myfico.com, you see the FICO 8 scores, and those are not the mortgage scores. You have to click on the little button at the bottom, just below there. It says score versions by type. When you go to MyFICO today, there are 40 FICO scores, 40, and only 3 are for mortgage lending. There's a bunch of credit card scores, a bunch of auto scores, and then FICO 10, their latest generation of scores. And we could log into MyFICO right now, and I could click around and show you.
Oh yeah.
You want me to log into mine?
Yeah, show us where to look.
So that's the FICO 8 score is not the one that reports for your mortgage, but more like if you were applying for a credit card or something along those lines.
Well, maybe. I don't, each credit card company uses different. You'd have to look at the disclosure. Every time you apply for credit, whether you're approved or not, these lenders or credit card companies have to send you a disclosure in the mail. And on that piece of paper, towards the bottom half, it'll let you know your data was checked at this place. And oftentimes it'll give you the reason codes you weren't hired. Based on that, I can determine what score it was. It might be a credit score. As far as your open active credit cards you have right now giving you a score, it's going to be the FICO 8 score. And it's just different than the mortgage scores. And how close it is to the mortgage score for that bureau, it just depends on if it's scored it similar, but it's just going to be off. There's no gauge.
Yeah, because mine was, well, I think my mortgage mid score was like 17 or something like that, and then this one, 668, 667. So it's around that mid 600 range. So those are 2 different scores, but I would still qualify for the best tier for a mortgage, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, 740 is a top tier.
Got it.
And Brian can obviously speak better than that than I can, but 720, 740, sometimes it's not a difference at all, depending on how much you're putting down. I can tell you this, for FHA, VA, USDA, I don't think there is a difference between 720, 740, pretty much for those government loans. If you're over 640, you're great. 660 might make it a little bit better, and 620 still get good loans. And we're talking minor differences. This in the difference between a car being at 10% or 18%.
Yeah.
Nothing that big.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm logging in. I don't have my thing preset here because I'm using Chrome. Let me go see what my password is. Okay. All right. All right. And then type it in right. Okay, I'm in. So I'm assuming I just share my screen. Levi, is that how it works? Present.
Yeah, try that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Now y'all see it now? Can y'all see my screen?
No.
Okay. Here we go. There. Can y'all see it?
Oh, hold on. Let me get back to it. Yep.
Okay. Can y'all see it now?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. So as you can see here, they show you the FICO 8 scores right out of the gate. And when clients log in, they'll often give me a screenshot or a picture of these scores. So when you click on the mortgage scores, these are the scores that are used for mortgage lending. These are scores 5, 4, and 2. And then there's other score versions by type. There's a lot of different auto loan scores. The auto 8s are the most widely used. I was an expert witness in a case. I had a deposition actually all day yesterday. Trade union attorney grilled me from 8:30 to 4:30, but I won. I was on the side of right. But anyway, some of the disclosures that I had from denials, I saw the FICO auto score 4 being used. And then credit card scores. You know, you mentioned earlier, you asked me earlier, Travis, about credit card companies. Man, I don't know if they go by these scores or not. I don't really see them that often. It's not something I'm exposed to as much as I am the mortgage scores. And then these new version FICO 10 scores, I don't know anybody that's using these scores. And then, you know, not to show my data here, but if you click on reports, it's a much easier format. Their user interface is much better. They'll give you some insight down here as to your payment history and amount of debt and kind of give you some guidance. There's also just some good general information about FICO scoring here that you can learn from as well. But again, it's real simple. Just click on the mortgage scores and those are the scores. Now you'll notice that maybe these 8s have updated more recently and my mortgage scores are still older. So see how those are older than even some of these updated. So you have to be careful with that. And when I look at these alerts, you'll notice that these alerts are all coming, these +0, -1, all of this stuff is coming from the FICO 8 score. And so I get clients that send me something alarming, like, oh my gosh, something happened. I'm like, just ignore the FICO 8 alerts. And so
I was doing that for a little while there.
I know. And look, you talk about the black market web. Look at all that.
Yeah,
Ton of them, man. I got so many of them. Mary, y'all all know Mary. She's my office manager, and she has my email. And so it's like ding, 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 ding. She says, "Oh my God, Eddie, what's going on with your my FICO?" Okay, that's pretty much it. I'll log out of here and then stop the screen sharing. Okay, we're back.
Yeah, I think we lost Levi.
We kicked him out. It's okay.
We kicked him out. Well, I mean, hey, man, Eddie, I really appreciate your time this evening, man. That was absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate your time, man. Thank you for sharing all that knowledge. Always learning from you, man. Always learning from you.
I appreciate that, man. I can't believe it's already been an hour, man. I feel like we need to keep on going.
Quick, man.
We need to have a Rogan, dude. We need to do like 2 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours to 3 hours, man. We still got a lot more to cover. Well, yeah. I really appreciate y'all having me on. This has been a lot of fun. I rarely get to kind of have an off the cuff, just conversation like this about credit. So it's a lot of fun to me. And then maybe we can get some more questions in the future. I really like flat-footed questions about credit. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I tried to do FICO. It says we cannot confirm your identity. So,
yeah, that happens commonly. They'll ask you some security questions about addresses and different things, and it could be from that fraud. But I'll tell you, man, they have a really good customer service. 10, 15 minutes later, they'll ask you some questions. Humans will ask you questions and not just a computer, and you can be in there pretty quick.
Oh, I just missed them. They just cut off.
Yeah, well, when you log back in, the phone number will still be there. But let's do this again. I appreciate y'all having me on. And if anybody asks any follow-up questions and maybe make note of them, or I'd be more than happy to answer.
Well, your number is on the screen. We put your number in the chat too. And so we could also add it in the description. as
Is
well.
that the right number you want people reaching out to?
That's fine, man. That's my cell phone. Hit it.
You got a website?
I do. It's a creditsecurity.group.com. Creditsecurity.group.com. Check out our Google reviews. I'm very excited about those. We worked really hard. I think we have 382 5-star reviews, and all but 4 are 5 stars. So
That's tough for a credit company, man. That's fantastic.
Well, that's tough for credit repair, but not tough for the way we do things. Because I just tell people,
I know
man,
for sure.
it's real simple. I'm an expert, and I tell people the truth, and so I don't have to worry about somebody being mad at me because I know what's possible, what's not possible, and you just tell people the truth. I'll leave you with this. One of the things that really frustrates me with credit repair companies is they give people false hope. If a family's going to buy this summer and everybody's trying to move, and they sign up with this credit repair company in January, and it's assumed they can buy a home. Well, think about all the emotional planning and all the real planning, and to only be let down at the last minute that it's not going to work. That emotional roller coaster is just cruel to do to people. If somebody can't buy when the time frame they want to, then they didn't know day one. Tell somebody the truth today. But see, the problem with credit repairers are trying to delete accurate information with a bunch of silly form letters. It just doesn't work. And it's like having a football team and every play is going to be a Hail Mary, all 4 downs, and we're going to win. I'm like, no, you're not.
Highly unlikely.
All right, guys. Thanks again. I could keep on going, but I appreciate y'all's time, and I'll come on anytime you want me to.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, brother.
Nice.
All right.
Nice to meet y'all.
Eddie's information in the description below. So if you have any credit needs, feel free to reach out. And until next time, well, we'll see you next week.
Awesome.